Can everybody see that back? Okay. Well, hello. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Devin Standard. I am a corporate executive working in the defense industry. I am an accomplished martial artist, a certified National Rifle Association pistol instructor, outdoor enthusiast, and I have lived technically in 5 different countries, Asia, Latin America, Europe, traveled all over the world many times, and been caught in one nasty little war, which I managed to survive, thank God, for my family and me. And one of my personal missions is to help other people be prepared. I think one of the reasons that we're all here today is we have varying levels of confidence in the organized government, and we have a lot more confidence in ourselves, our friends, our communities, our churches, and I think that that's the way to go. And so thanks for giving me a couple minutes of your time, and hopefully you'll learn a thing or two that will help you in case something bad does happen. So, disasters happen every day. There are forest fires and floods and earthquakes and tsunamis. We humans, we love to think that it cannot happen to us, but it does, and it can. And one of the keys to being prepared is understanding what the most likely type of threat is in the area where you live or work or reside or are traveling. I mean, there are hurricanes and blizzards and floods and riots. I mean, I don't know how many of you are from New Hampshire, but my family went through a 6-day blackout this past winter, Christmas week. We didn't get a generator until the very last day, so that didn't help us much. It got down to 35 degrees within our house. The children had to haul water from the stream to make the toilets work. I had them sleeping in sleeping bags inside in a tent in their room. So they were all comfortable. It was an experience they will never forget. There was ice and snow and cold, but we had plenty of food and water. We had plenty of candles and flashlights and lanterns and all of those things, and we had those little heat packs. Is everyone familiar with the little heat packs you put in your glove when you go skiing? Chuck a couple of those in your sleeping bag at night. You're cool, even if it's 30 degrees.
Oh, you're warm.
Exactly, thank you. And so I would just like for everyone to take 5 minutes and think about what is most likely to happen where I live. And you'll see terrorism, that's at the bottom of the list. I mean, that is, people make a big deal out of it, but you're much more likely to have a forest fire in your area, or a flood, or some other type of natural disaster, or riot or insurrection. So these are things. Think about it. In order to plan, you have to think. So, I chopped down my 10 tips to 7 last night. Number 1 is make a plan. Number 2, get real protection. Be serious about it. Decide that you and your family and friends are going to live and survive. Number 3, plan to evacuate. You always want to be able to stay home, as we did during the ice storm, but if you have to evacuate, if those trees are going up at the end of the street and if the fire's moving your way on the wind, be prepared to evacuate. In order to do it well, you have to think ahead. You have to plan. Number 4, cash is king. The blackout example once again. Most of the stores were closed in my neighborhood. There was one Walgreens open. Their ATMs didn't work. Their cash registers didn't work. They took cash. People who showed up with small denomination bills, they were allowed in one at a time with the flashlight. They could buy whatever they wanted from the shelves. And you've all seen what happens in Florida during hurricane season. Walmart shelves are empty of water, of ice, of duct tape, of all those things. So planning ahead, and cash. Cash is king. Food and water. The human body can live 3 days without water. The human body can live 3 weeks without food. We know this from the people who've gone through hunger strikes and that sort of thing. That's the typical person. So, food and water. I probably should reverse that in order of priority because water is the more important of the two. Think about it now. It may save you later. 6, light and heat. Physical benefits from light and heat, psychological benefits from light and heat. I remember a few years ago when Timex first came out with a glowing watch, if you recall those watches with the light in it, and it was really neat. And they got some stories from customers. There was some people who were lost out in the woods and they were panicking and this and that. And finally they calmed themselves down by lighting up their little area underneath a tree with their Timex watch. And they kept that going through the night, and it gave them psychological comfort to survive, to maintain, to resist, to keep up that fighting spirit. Light and heat. 7, cowboy up. I'm from Colorado, and everyone out west knows what that means. But essentially it means, don't be a wimp. We don't need Americans to act like Jonathan Edwards. Remember that little wimpy politician with the $200 haircuts and the permatan and all that? We need more John Waynes. People need to be tough. We are all here because our forefathers were tough enough to survive. So it's in your genetic code, it's in your DNA to be a survivor. Don't let Hollywood turn you into a wimp, just a quizzling victim. We are tough people. If you dig down in your core, you will see that you have what it takes to survive just about any disaster. So that was the top 10, or 7. So now, number 1, make a plan. One of the worst things that can ever happen to a person is to end up in a FEMA camp. FEMA stands for Federal Emergency Management Association. FEMA is a 4-letter word. Once again, FEMA is a 4-letter word. Are you going to trust your health, safety, and welfare to some government employee, civil servant wearing a blue nylon windbreaker? What kind of training does he have? What kind of responsibility does that person have? What kind of obligation does he have to protect you as a specific individual? None. If due to that person's gross negligence, you or your family are injured or whatever, you have no legal recourse to go back to him. So, another story, this is a horrible one. I used to live in Saigon. I had a nanny who was helping my wife with the children. She had been one of the Vietnamese boat people, if anyone remembers, who fled there during the 70s, and she ended up in a United Nations refugee camp in Indonesia. For 8 years, this woman was abused and assaulted, not by the camp inmates per se, but by the United Nations guards who were there ostensibly to protect her. Once again, the United Nations camp guards who were there to protect this young woman took disgusting liberties with her for 8 years, destroying her as a person. The reason that I bring this up is decide today that no matter what happens, you are not going to eat government cheese. So know the threat. In order to stay out of that camp, you need to know the threat. You have to have a plan. Make a plan for your family where you're going to meet up. A primary meetup location, a secondary meetup location. Just in case something bad's happening and you can't make it to the primary location. Now, who will pick up the kids from school? Who will address the pets? Think about it now so that when the fire's right there, you don't have to run around in a panic.